Hello, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the FitBod Blueprint, where I am once again joined by my dear good friend, Dr. Chris Stanton. How you doing, brother?
Excellent, doctor, for sure. Always love hearing that.
Doctor. Whoa, doctor.
Exactly.
How you doing today, man?
Doing all right, doing all right. Had a business networking meeting this morning. Got to meet a whole bunch of individuals with all different businesses and hopefully build some relationships that way. So that was done early this morning. I was invited to sit down and just introduce myself, take a look at it, see if it's something that we could maybe potentially partner in with. But yeah, so it's been a very interesting morning thus far.
Awesome, man. Well, glad to hear that, of course. So, for those who aren't aware, this is going to be a part two. So, if you've not listened to part one, where we introduce Chris, go over his fitness journey, covering his childhood growing up overweight, like I did, getting into fat loss, getting pretty deep into the ketogenic approach, and then coaching with me. Obviously, we love carbs here, and then covering his first bodybuilding show. And now we're here talking today more in depth on Chris has become a financial coach. And as I mentioned at the end of the second episode, obviously I'm a big proponent and you should be investing into your health. At the end of the day, if you're not healthy, you're probably not living a super high quality of life. And if you've got a bunch of health problems while you're younger, they're going to turn into serious medications and crippling conditions as you start to age. And I want my golden years to not be my crippled years or my dependent on others years. But one of the things that I'm a big fan of is before you start investing into your health with coaching is you should have your financial house in order. It's the last thing I want is for somebody to start with me or with Coach Tyler and they get 3 months in and go, shoot, my radiator on my car broke and now I need to replace that. And the shop saying it's going to be $3,000. I'm having to dip into my emergency funds. And I really, I can't continue on with investing into my health. I never want finances to be what stops someone from getting into better health and improving their quality of life. And that's why I am such a big fan of what you're doing here is helping others. So let's kind of start at the top. Like what made you decide to start helping people with their finances?
Okay. So I guess it started basically on a personal level first, right? So I've always been a saver with money. So it was something that came natural to me. People call me cheap. I call myself frugal, perhaps wise with my money, but cheap is another term that's thrown out there. What it really came down to was me just being more cognizant and conscious of what I could and couldn't afford based upon how much money I actually had in the bank, right? That's basically that's basic concept that at least I had. Not everyone is like that. Sometimes people don't really understand the whole concept, especially when credit is thrown in there. Credit card usage is just run rampant. So what drove me to help was that I did see a need, especially with our generation, the use of credit card and credit just rampant and not really understanding or having the basics of saving and really understanding maybe utilizing debt as a leverage or maybe what type of debt is good, quote unquote, good or bad, stuff like that. And it all came down to one, I remember it vividly. It was a Monday night at around maybe 11:50, so almost midnight. And I'm coming home from bowling. I was a bowler and had a bowling league on Monday night. And I'm on the drive home and I would listen to the radios and Dave Ramsey was on.
Oh
And,
yeah.
and I was living in New York at the time. And Dave Ramsey's on again, 11:50, 12 o'clock, almost midnight. And he's going, I think it was one of maybe the second time I'm listening to him. And he starts going over what is considered debt. If you have this type of a payment, it's debt. If you have this payment, it's debt. Anything that is you're paying money out to someone or some entity, it's debt, especially if it's on a recurring basis. Even credit cards, right? If you have a credit card, now he's very heavy on not utilizing credit cards. So he even considers that debt. And I remember listening to this, and all of a sudden, that saver component out of me was just like this, bells, alarms going off. And I had like this just sinking feeling like all of that stuff, if that all that stuff is actual debt and considered debt, like, oh man, I may be in more trouble than I even thought. Or maybe I'm in trouble and I didn't even realize it. So it forced me to really look at everything and write everything down as to what I owed. And I mean basic stuff, car, maybe, I was financing, not leasing. I knew that much, but maybe my financing my car, my minivan, the solar panels we had just put on the house, obviously the mortgage, right? All of these things we were paying money out, all of it, student loans. Oh, student loans. You rightfully so call me a doctor because I have a doctorate degree. At the time I graduated pharmacy from St. John's University. It's a doctorate degree, a PharmD. Technically, I'm a nuclear pharmacist. I have a board certification in nuclear pharmacy. So I had all these student loans built up to pay for that, and I was still paying that off. So that's debt. So all of this was now, I'm like, oh my goodness. I started adding it up, and well over $200,000 in debt, not including the mortgage. The mortgage was another $300,000-$400,000 at the time, right? So, all of this, you got like, oh my gosh, I got so much debt on my hands, and I'm not necessarily able to use my saving instincts as much as I had wanted to really start building some wealth.
So it
So
was kind of like, okay, I know that I'm in the. So at first, I imagine it's kind of like, I know I'm in the ocean, I know I'm in the water, but like I'm swimming, and then you realize, shit, I'm like miles away from the shore.
right,
Huh. I realize now I'm miles away from the shore. What direction do I swim? Right.
right, right. That's a really good analogy because you don't know where to go, right? Because if you're in the middle of the ocean, what direction do you go, right? I don't know. So it was then that I had to, quote unquote, convince my wife to, let's take a look at this. Let's really, really take a look at this because, you know, if we're having to dip into the savings every other month just to pay for credit card bills, and we're both making decent money, this might not be the best utilization of our actual wealth that we're bringing in of our income. So
So let me ask, because I was raised with Dave Ramsey on the radio pretty much. If it wasn't sports radio, it was Dave Ramsey.
mm,
And I'm always just curious to know, do you believe in the dichotomy relationship of the spender and the saver?
I do believe people have that
So
innately. I do believe that.
was there that battle within your marriage of the saver, right? Is Corinne the
She's the
natural
spender.
spender?
She's the
Okay.
spender. And
So
she
was
doesn't
that
deny that. She doesn't deny that. And when we got together, it was before we even got married, she had multiple credit cards. And it was something that we had started the process even before getting married, that we said, hey, listen, you gotta, like, it's not necessarily a good thing to have all these open credit lines, regardless of whether you're using them or not. To have all that open credit line, especially if we're going to go for a mortgage eventually down the road, bank, because that's what we knew back then, right? You get a mortgage from a bank. The banks are going to look at all your open credit lines, and the way they look at it is, even if you have a credit card that is not being used, but it's open and it's got a $10,000 limit, and let's say you've got five of them, they're going to look and say, oh, there's a $50,000 risk to us here, right?
because what if
Because
you
you
run that up?
exactly, what's to say you can run all that up and then just book and not pay anything back, right? So they'll look at all of that and determine whether you're a good person to lend X amount of hundreds of $1,000s to. So the spending aspect there comes into play where you have all this available funds to you. Now, whether you're using it or not is one thing. She was definitely using some of those, and it was, it's the best ones that you get to. It's you go into a store, like I guess Kohl's or something like that, and open up a credit card, and you get like the 10% discount or
Save
the
20%
15%.
today. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. A lot of it was those, but those little ones add up, and unless
So
you're on top of it, it can get out of control.
so let me ask then. So you're organically the saver, Corinna's organically the spender. Whenever you first started bringing this stuff to her, was was there any sort of like fear, pushback of like, hey, we're comfortable, we're making it work, like I don't know that I want to make that change. Was what was like was that there for her? And if so, what was her like, okay, I'm as Dave puts it, tired of being sick and tired.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, there was initial some pushback. Not so much on this is something that we're never going to be able to do. I don't believe in this at all. It wasn't that type of a pushback. It was more of like, well, we're not that bad. We're
Is
not
it urgent
that
enough?
bad. Right. We're doing just fine. I can stop, or it's just a little pullback here every once in a while. We're not that bad. And I at first, I wasn't pushy. It was over the course of, I'd say, anywhere from 3 to 6 months before she became very open to like, okay, let's actually start tackling this. So it took time. It took a lot of, you know, subtle hinting, hey, listen, why don't you think about something like this, or think of it this way? Or here's a podcast, because Dave at the time then started going on social media. He started putting out his YouTube little short clips, or he had his podcast, and I was like, hey, listen, just listen to this. You're on the drive to work anyway, right? Why don't you just listen to this? That's what really got her hooked on. And the thing that the thing that got her was the debt free screams. It was Dave having those people come in, either call in or visit his studio, actually now here about 30 minutes away from my house, maybe 40 minutes away from my house in Tennessee, where these debt free screams would happen. And that's what really got her. She's like, I want to do a debt free scream, and I want to just scream it out. I'm like, all right, then let's go. Let's do this.
When you started paying off your debt, I know there's a couple of different approaches that get recommended. Like Dave Ramsey's big on start with the smallest, work your way up,
Yeah, the
create the
snowball.
debt snowball. I know there's the opposite approach of the debt avalanche where it's okay, start paying off the biggest one. And then there's also the approach some people will apply to those of let's not necessarily focus on the biggest debt, but let's focus on the highest interest percent. Now,
That's yeah. Avalanche takes some of that into effect as well with interest. There's cash flow indexing, which is another type of method where we essentially take the interest on the debt and then throw it into some formula, and then it comes out with another number. And based upon where it ranges between 50 or below or above 50, will determine on how or in what order those debts get paid off. So yeah, there's
so
definitely different methods of going for sure.
with that one, because that's honestly something that I've never heard about before. So of course, me being a bit of a nerd, I'm now like, well, wait a minute. So I'm just super quick question. So is I take it with that one, you said it's how high above or below 50. I take it the higher that it is, the more sooner we want to get that one eliminated and paid off, right?
I believe so. So what it essentially comes down to is that if it's higher, then it's a little bit more of a priority because it produces more cash flow to the individual. So cash flow is king. This isn't necessarily something that's really pushed by Dave. Although he implies it, he doesn't actually say it. That's more of a Robert Kiyosaki type of concept, is cash flow. But cash flow is definitely king. Now, I mentioned Dave Ramsey and Robert Kiyosaki, and they are a complete 180 of each other when it comes to the utilization of money and debt. But concepts are still the same. It's and all these strategies, they all work, right? And that's why people kind of get overwhelmed as well, and they need someone to help them figure in and boil it down into what approach would work best for them to figure out.
100%. It's just like with nutrition, with training. It's yes,
Absolutely.
all of it works. A deficit's a deficit, maintenance is maintenance, a surplus is surplus, progressive overload is progressive overload. What works best for you? So I love that you help people through that. And the like what are some of the biggest money mistakes that you see people make? And this is obviously a podcast on health and fitness. So if there's anything that you see where you're like, man, people spend a lot of money on blank. Like, what are some of the common mistakes that you see?
Yeah, so one of the biggest ones, and this takes time, and I think you and I both fell into this, and I think every young person falls into this, is spending money on like useless supplements, right? Or supplements that just, and I kind of say that because I think you and I both were sponsored by a fitness supplement company at one point or
Yeah,
another,
yeah.
so
So I'll throw it out there. Yep, I'm still an affiliate with Core Nutritionals. This is the first time I've ever even brought it up here. That's how little I push
right,
supplements, because supplements like the little tiny cherry on top of the sundae that's going to make or
right.
break your fitness.
And
But
that's what most people don't understand, right? There's a whole science behind supplements, and a lot of it is just marketing, but some hold their value. So I will not say that all supplements are bad. What I will say is that the overspending on them is really what drives just poor money management in my view. Protein is obviously something that everyone should have. Now, which one you get, that could be a debate. The cheapest one is obviously you have your regular whey concentrate. Does great. It's perfect for a lot of people. Do you need to spend more on, let's say, a hydrolyzed? I would say no, unless you have some GI issues. Maybe you want some lactose free, a little bit more lactose, you're lactose sensitive. Then you go with a hydrolyzed. It's going to be more money for sure, but it works. Then you have on the other side the casein, right? So you want something that's slower digesting, maybe for overnight stuff. There is something to that as well. So
yeah,
each one has its own, but could you get away with just just regular concentrate? Absolutely. And I would
yeah,
recommend that for anyone.
that's honestly an area that like I couldn't agree more. I mean, whenever I see people spending money on their health, their fitness, it is oftentimes in the wrong areas. Look, if you're buying a fat burner, unless it has caffeine in it and you're really just kind of taking it for a nice little boost for energy and you happen to like the flavor, you're pretty much wasting your money on
Yeah.
it. Like, you will burn far more fat by increasing your steps by 10 to 20%, and that's free. That's just
Yeah,
costing you time, baby.
absolutely. I'm with you there as well. Which brings me to pre-workouts, right? Pre-workouts are something that's marketed very heavily. And I took them, you took them. I think every guy who's ever gone to the gym at one point or another for some consistent time has taken some type of pre-workout. Now, they'll say, well, they work. I mean, I get this tremendous pump. And you're right. And I get this like tingling feeling. And you're right. But whether that feeling is actually producing an effect that's going to increase your chances of either muscle growth is so minuscule, if at all happening, that you have to take a step back and ask yourself, is it worth the money that I'm putting into it? Where if I were just to eat more, have more carbs before my workout, drop a little salt, and maybe take some caffeine. Hey, there are caffeine pills out there. You can take one caffeine pill. They range from anywhere from 100 milligrams to 400 milligrams per capsule. If I'm really tired, I'll take one capsule of 200 milligrams before a workout.
Yeah.
And that's it. I got enough energy to go in. I'll have a couple of rice cakes, if at all, because there's also, I work out very early in the morning. So there's some debate as to whether I actually need any additional carbs for my workout because of eating a nice, good meal, nice meal, before I go to bed. So all of that stuff is to say, it may not be necessary where spending $60, $70, $80 a month on, or even more, let's say, because some of them now are only 20, 25 servings. So you're not even getting a full month
Yeah,
supply, 30-day
dude,
supply.
it chaps me whenever I see, oh
Yeah,
hey, protein powder, and it's like, oh, 30 grams of protein per serving, and the serving is 3 scoops, and I'm like, you're getting 12 servings out of this $50 bag of protein for what? Because of who's
right,
endorsing it? Like,
right.
I couldn't agree more, man. I've seen people spending hundreds. I've seen somebody spending over $1,000 a month on supplements, and it's like, how else could you direct that?
I
Don't get me
would
wrong. If
go put
you
it towards
have
your
the
food. If that's the case, if you're serious on this stuff, just go put it towards food, right? I mean, I have no
now,
problem with that, but go put it towards food. It's all about budgeting properly.
now another area where I see a lot of people spend money, and tell me if you've seen the same thing, is feeling like they have to go to the highest end gym. Like, I've seen people with $200 to $300 a month gym memberships, or that's just the gym membership, and it's like, what are you getting there that like a Crunch or an Anytime Fitness, or I know people are going to turn their nose up at me and I'm going to piss off a lot of people with this one, but what are you getting there that a Planet Fitness doesn't have? I know
Right.
Planet Fitness, that some of them have a well earned reputation for kind of being a little assholish regarding the lunk alarm and stuff, but there are more that are just normal gyms. They happen to just be that brand. Like, you can get a Crunch membership for $9 a month.
Yeah. So that's a big, big thing also because it's all about flashiness too, right? So when I was in New York, I lived on Long Island and I did the Planet Fitness thing when I was first starting off. I didn't like it, so to speak. It didn't necessarily, but it was $10. So you did it once in a while and that was it. I did a whole CrossFit thing and that was like on a different scale. That was like $150 a month. And it's like, all right, well, it's still quite a lot. And then your needs change. And then I joined a regular private gym, just some guy who owned a gym, and that cost me like $30 a month. And sometimes you go to those type of places and it's all based upon what your training is, right? So this particular gym didn't necessarily have everything that I wanted, or at least at the times that I was going there, I found myself lacking in getting access to certain things, and it didn't have a large variety to begin with, so that forced me to change and look elsewhere. Finally, I wound up going to, if anybody here is into fitness perhaps knows about Bev Francis Mecca, the Mecca in Long Island, Syosset,
East Coast Mecca.
the East Coast Mecca, right? And that was only, I think it came out to be like maybe $50 a month or $45 a month when you paid for the yearly. If you got it into a certain time of the year, it came out to like 40 or 55, something like that, bucks a month. And that gym, literally, Mr. Olympias have worked at, trained at. I mean, Kevin English was the guy who opened up the gym every morning, right? And I spoke to him, and I would talk to him all the time. You know, you would see all these pros come in every single day. What's that guy's name? It's a weird Zavikas. He would come in, and every single day you would just talk to the guys. So that type of a gym. Now, right across the street, this is my point. Right across the street was a Lifetime. Do you know how much Lifetime? You're looking at $400-$500. Okay.
Right. Hey, great that they have an Olympic pool, but like, are you swimming in it? If the answer is no, why are you paying for it?
So that is where it comes down to, right? It's what is your training? What is your priorities? And does that facility meet up with it? And then finally, can you actually afford it? That's really, really comes down to also. I mean, even that boils down to the same thing about purchasing a house. Can you afford it? Is it something that you can afford? And I don't just mean by monthly payments, because that's how a lot of people sell you on stuff as well. You make this much a month, you can purchase it because you can afford the monthly payments. But that's how they swindle you, because now they're throwing interest into that and they're making money off of you. And my goal is to help people realize this, say that, listen, there are all the other alternatives. And whether you may have to sacrifice some luxury for the time being, in the long run, Look how much you can potentially gain. And in the short run, still get the same results. Like, let's be honest, we can get the same results, if not better results, because we have less crap that we have to think about.
Yeah. No, 100%. And I love that you bring up, the hey, there might be a little short term sacrifice for, a year or a couple of years while somebody's getting their financial house in better order. But that discipline pays off. And it's just like with your fitness, right? Yes, if you're somebody, I've kept 120 pounds off for over 20 years now. Okay. I
Which is
didn't
no easy
get to
feat,
that.
which really is no easy feat, especially with guys like us who have appetites.
Statistically speaking, if an individual loses 20% or more of their initial starting body weight, they have about a 2% chance of sustaining that weight loss for longer than 5 years. And of the 2%, the vast majority of them are women, not men. So my point in bringing this up is, if you have a long-term fitness journey ahead of you, or you have a long-term financial journey ahead of you to reach your goals, it is going to take sacrifice. It is going to take delaying instant gratification for a while, but look at that thing on the very end. Look at what that end result is going to be. For me, on my fitness journey, the end result was, hey, I'm no longer so large that a scale can't even register my freaking weight. The end result is I can get into a car and my stomach isn't right up against the steering wheel trying to honk the horn. The end result is, at 16 years old, I had high blood pressure. I was like 140 over high 90s. Like, I that path that I was on was leading to an early grave. I probably would not be alive today at 36 had I stayed on that path for another 20 years. That's just the reality. Just like with finances, like I have always been pretty debt risk adverse, but then the funny thing is, um whenever I sat down with our financial advisor and planner, and she was like, "All right, we're going to do a risk tolerance assessment." Whenever it comes to investments, I have like almost no adversity to it, to the point of she goes, "Phil, I don't have a next slide to show you to ask, are you still comfortable with this? Because nobody has made it to this point, myself and our head partners included." Look, I'm a cowboy when it comes to it. Like, I'm not willing to take on money, but I'm willing to I'm willing to risk it. Like,
Right.
so for me, I have always been very fortunate that, again, if it wasn't sports radio on the radio whenever I was a kid, it was Dave Ramsey, and it was a lot of, hey, avoid this stuff. Now, this isn't to say that I think Dave Ramsey is the end all be all. I
No,
believe there is
absolutely
a
not.
responsible way. A credit card is a tool, and for those who can use it properly. A hammer is a great tool for hanging a picture, but if I use that hammer to smash my own hand and then wonder, why is my hand broken? Well, it's because I did it to myself. So I remember, though, whenever Nikki and I were saving for our wedding because we wanted to pay cash, we had to sit down and revisit our budget, and we had to tighten some things up and just go, you know what? If we're going to do this in 2 years, here's how much we need. Here's what we need to save. Here's the timeline. This is how much we need per month. And it did kind of stink, like having to cut back on certain things. For me at the time, I was super big into MMA and boxing, and I was still putting go fast parts on my Firebird. Like,
Hmm.
that stuff had to stop. And believe me, whenever I saw, like, oh, hey, here's these new suspension components from BMR that just came out, I wanted to buy the Chromoly K frame. There are a lot of people going, what the hell is he talking about now? But I knew if I did that, that would delay what the end goal was, because I didn't want to have to put a wedding on a credit card. I wanted to be able to say, we paid for our wedding in cash. So short-term sacrifice yields a much happier end result, whether it's your fitness journey, your health journey, hell, if it's your career journey. Like, you might have to take some time to take some courses and you're not making the progress as fast as what you want, but you will get there eventually staying with the course. So I want to ask you, what is usually like a big sign for somebody to know, like, look, it's time and you're ready to get your financial house in better order?
Yeah, so I guess the first thing is are you able to pay for everything every single month and still have residual left over? And what I mean by that is your leftover is not, oh, that leftover is going into savings. No, no, no. That leftover is already after you've saved and put money aside. So at Divine Stewardship, which is the name of the company that my wife and I now do as personal financial coaching, where we do more of it on a faith-based asset. So we utilize biblical principles and wisdom and guidance through our finances. Now, you don't necessarily need to believe in God or the Bible, but still the principles hold true, where we believe in tithing and saving to at least 10%. So tithing 10% of what you make, and then saving 10% right off the bat. So you may have heard of the policy of pay yourself first. Wholeheartedly believe that 100%. And then after your expenses, do you still have residual? Now, if you have stuff on a credit card, you should be paying that off every single month. Why pay extra interest? If you're not, that could be a sign. Do you have, how many cars do you have, number one? And then number two, are you paying on those cars, whether it be leasing or financing? Either way, financing people tell you, oh, finance, you own it. No, you don't. The only time you own it is after you've done paid for it, okay? Leasing, we all know we don't own it. It's literally we're borrowing it from the company, okay? Which I think is dumb. I really don't believe that at all. Even people say with businesses, write off and all that stuff. There may be certain situations and circumstances that may work, especially if you have maybe a delivery business. But even still, I would maybe work towards owning the vehicle, but that's a different story. When you're looking at a personal stuff, if you have any of those like big three right there, you might want to get an audit through us and let's sit down and take a look at where the money's actually going. If you don't have a savings account, that is at least nowadays, it used to be the rule 3 to 6 months, but now ever since COVID, the 3-month thing is out the window because 3 months came and gone and there were still people without any money, right? So now we're looking at anywhere of a family reserve or emergency fund of 6 to 12 months. So that is another thing. If you don't have that, you might want to start looking at your finances. So those type of components, not paying off your credit cards every month, how many car loans you may have, how much is your mortgage if you own a home? How much is your mortgage? Like what percentage of your monthly income is your mortgage payment? If it's above 20, pushing 30, over 30%, you may be in a house with a mortgage that is too much for you to handle, potentially. So, things like that we have to kind of look at. And I'm not necessarily suggesting that we cut a lot out of our expenses because, hey, listen, while Verizon cell phone may be ranked number one, you could still easily get, like a T-Mobile or a Mint Mobile.
Visible runs off of the same Verizon towers, and it's like $20 a month. Or actually now, yeah, like T-Mobile, I just learned this. T-Mobile now actually has legitimately more towers across the US than what Verizon does. They built and bought more old towers. So like T-Mobile, great alternative, but then you also have Mint Mobile thanks to every like Betty White was the sweetheart of America and Ryan Reynolds is like the hunk of America, I feel. It's like everybody loves Ryan Reynolds. Like I've been with Mint Mobile now for 3 years, I think. I paid $200 for the year.
Right.
For unlimited everything.
Right. So, so again, it's not like
why would I ever go back?
Right. You're not sacrificing the service, right? You're just changing the payment towards the service. So the phone is what really people go for, right? They want the phone. not necessarily the service. Well, so that's it's stuff like that that we can take into account and maybe just find cheaper alternatives that still provide you, if not the full 100% of what you're used to getting, and then maybe close to it, 80%, 85%. So, it's little things like that that we'll take a look at, but by no means do I want to limit you in any way. We think that budgeting, has a bad connotation to it. Budgeting at first, most people think of restriction. I don't necessarily think of it that way. I think budgeting is doing two things. It puts you in control and assigns the money to work in a certain way. So you are placing control over that dollar and telling it where to go. And then it also allows and gives a person permission to spend. Okay. Because
Yes.
if you understand where your dollar is going and you have already assigned it to do something, whatever is residual, it allows you to say, I'm going to spend this on this now. So again, it just puts you in the driver's seat and allows you to take control back. And that's like the foundation of where we start. And then from there, we can get into a lot of different powerful strategies that can be implemented. Dave's snowball method is good for absolute very basic beginners who don't have anything to go off of. It's a good place to start. Is it the best for them? I don't know. It's always based upon the current circumstances and situation. But it's very easy to understand, right? You start with the smallest, pay it off, then you take that payment, you roll it into the next one, then you take those payment, roll it into the next one. So that it implies that it's now getting bigger and bigger. Avalanche is a little bit different. You're going, almost in reverse. Cash flow index takes the cash flow, because remember, cash flow is king, how much you're able to retain at the end of the month. So there may be some things on the cash flow index that we don't touch, including mortgage. Maybe, it's very low on the number scale where we don't touch it. We don't have to worry about that because now we've got constant cash flow, or we've increased our cash flow. We work, my wife and I, we're technically Dave Ramsey certified coaches. We went through the program and we did the whole thing. We got certified through him. So we're, certified coaches, financial coaches through the Dave Ramsey program. But here I am talking about credit cards and utilizing debt in certain ways and maybe not paying off certain debts. It's because there's a whole realm out there and different methods out there that most people aren't aware of, that you can still get ahead without sacrifice, that much sacrifice. It all maybe just take maybe a different mindset in which the individual can then start really, really seeing success. One of the biggest aspects to this was when we had paid everything off, minus the mortgage. Now we had a plan. We took that 30-year mortgage. We now reduced it to 12 by refinancing and made it a 12-year mortgage. Again, we did the whole thing. And, after 2 years of that, you're like, okay, we could breathe a little bit, but it's still a whole nother 12 years away. How do I get this $300,000 mortgage off my sheet here? And that's when I was searching for alternatives, and I came across velocity banking, which is another very powerful concept. Sure enough, I implemented that concept, and that combined with me moving out of New York, reduced that 12 or 10-month plan down to where I can say we are now completely debt free in 1 year. So it took a total of 2 years since implementing the velocity banking, maybe 2.5 years of implementing the velocity.
Real quick, just to clarify, I believe you said 10 to 12 month. I believe, did you mean
10
10
to
to 12
12-year
year
plan.
plan to pay
Yeah,
off the
10 to
mortgage?
12-year plan
Okay.
down to essentially 2.5. I'll stretch it out to 3 because by the time we actually started the process, and then by the time all the paperwork and the appraisals and everything went through for the velocity banking aspect of it, it was maybe 5 months, 3 months down the road. So I'll say 3 years just to be conservative. We were done. So it took that 10-year plan and reduced it down to 3. Now, I'm not going to lie, a large portion of that was the move, from New York to Tennessee. But
Just kind of put things on pause for a little bit.
no, it accelerated it because I was able to sell my house and buy a cheaper one. So the difference was there. And then within a couple of months after that, maybe a year after that, we were complete. Now, my whole house, everything I own is on me. I have no payments outside my regular expenses, monthly expenses, and taxes. So we are completely debt free. And then there's the other concept of infinite banking. That was another thing that was introduced about 5, 6 years ago, that it can be another powerful tool, and something that I promote now as an alternative to the basics, or maybe addition to the basics, I should say. So my point is that there's so much out there that people aren't aware of, and they think that they have to lose something in order to gain ahead, when that isn't necessarily the case. There are many ways of getting ahead without sacrificing so much.
Yeah. No, and again, it's usually like a temporary sacrifice. Like if somebody said to me, "Hey Phil, if you make a little bit of sacrifice and you stick with this strategy, then instead of your house being paid off in, like right now we've got 25 years technically remaining on like the structure, but like, hey, if it can be paid off in 3, well, that sounds awful good. I mean, I can ask you because I always heard Dave Ramsey say, whenever you own the house, the grass feels
Oh
different on your
man,
feet.
that is so true. It is a different type of calmness, sigh of relief, everything. It puts an extra inch on your smile for sure. And you get to look at your house from the outside and just be like, I I accomplished this. For any individual that isn't like some type of major like sports thing, or some big corporate individual or something like that, who's looking at some massive work thing, for the individual and on the familial basis, owning a house is something that most Americans don't ever really get to see. I just turned 40. My
Right.
goal was to, before the age of 40, own my house. That was my goal. And right at the very end of 2024, for reference, my birthday is like January 2nd. So right at the end in December, right to the wire, we had it paid off. So technically, I made it to where I accomplished my very lofty goal of having be completely paid off before the age of 40. And
Man, that is
it's a
absolutely
tremendous
incredible.
feeling for sure. And to be in this type of position, it does take discipline and following the process. But once you have those habits in place, just like with fitness and nutrition and going to the gym and getting healthier, once you have those habits in place, it just flows, right? It just flows. And that's why we're here, right? You have the coaching realm in fitness and in health. I have the coaching realm in finance. And you can have everything, but you have to have someone perhaps show you the path, guide you along the path. Ultimately, my goal is to, not necessarily, have you without me, but once you're done with everything, I only catch up with you once a quarter, then, twice a year, and then maybe on a yearly basis, depending on where you're at, you know? So that's my whole goal. And then if they want to go into explore more of the powerful aspects, velocity banking, infinite velocity is another term that's going out there now. All of these are very, very powerful for not only debt elimination, but wealth building, and then creating generational legacy wealth. That's my next phase. And that's what I really want to show everyone. I didn't realize that if I had started earlier, early 30s with these different powerful tools, I could have had maybe, and I look at it now, I probably could have had everything paid off by the age of 35, with a whole decade worth of additional savings and additional compounded growth had I implemented some of these other powerful strategies earlier. And that's kind of my goal, is to just see where you are and to see what can be done with all these strategies to get you whatever your end goal is, whatever that may be.
So let me ask, you mentioned about having people reach out to do an audit. So do you offer those audits? Do you offer free calls? How can people get in touch with you and see like, hey, is
Yeah,
this a good
so
fit?
we can do an audit But first, I would love for someone to kind of just connect, and we can do what we call a clarity call, free clarity call or alignment call. It's to kind of see what your beliefs and values are and whether your money strategies align with that. And from there, we can kind of determine what is missing, what the gap is, and then we can go from there into say, hey, listen, these are some of the options that we have available to you or what we offer for you. It could be just the regular coaching session. It could be the financial audit is kind of built into the initial process. And then once we get through all that, it's okay, whether it's regular coaching, maybe we need to do 6 months of coaching, or you're interested in other different modalities. We can really accelerate this and get you into a velocity banking. We can get you into infinite banking, in which can cover a lot of things. I mean, just alone lifestyle benefits of infinite banking for the individual. There's so many. I actually have a list here because it's just so many. It could be your emergency fund, your opportunity fund, help you debt consolidate. That's a big thing, right? Debt consolidation, tying everything into just one payment outside of the use of a company. Those companies that do debt consolidations, they're destroying your credit. They're telling you not to pay. I know this because I have a personal family member that's going through this process. It's awful. They're destroying the credit. Now you got all these creditors calling you and saying, hey, you got to pay. That's stress. That's added stress that the person doesn't need. So there's different ways against that. How about a college savings fund? How about, you want to purchase a car? How about having a fund for that and a way to do that all on your own? Travel, vacation, whatever it is, pay for it out of this. You mentioned the wedding. Perfect example. What if somebody wants to save up for the wedding or utilize this as a tool to accelerate getting funds for a wedding being done that way? And then, in the long term, it could be used as supplemental retirement income, supplemental. And again, the use in infinite banking, all of those funds are tax free. It's tax-free money if you're using it properly. So there's more that we can dive into that maybe at a later talk or, if you're still interested. But those are just some of the benefits that an individual can have with that particular type of strategy. Now, velocity banking, you can do a lot of it too, although it's tied to a bank and not your own personal thing. It's still really, really good. And I've done all of these. So it's good to have someone who has the knowledge. Now, I don't know everything, but I have done all of these. I have experience in paying off debt. I have experience with working with others and helping them pay off the debt. My wife is tremendous at helping people organize and get a budget down. You would think that as a saver that I'd be able to, but she was the spender. She had a budget. She knew exactly what to lay it out, how everything went. Like I said, how could you do you spend a lot of money, but she knew exactly how to lay everything. She's tremendous at that, way better than I am at that. So,
So I think other thing again, just I know we keep bringing up Dave's name, but he says there's a spender and a saver, and there's a nerd and there's the free spirit, and usually the spender is the free spirit, but occasionally the spender will be the nerd. Is Corinne the spender and the nerd?
It depends on what you mean by nerd. It depends on what you mean by nerd. But when it comes to organizing and putting things in place, that is her alley. That is where she nerds out all day long. She would my pantry has containers of food that are labeled. She bought like 3 label makers and just labels everything. Everything in her, you would talk to her, everything has a home. And when it's taken out of its home, it's got to go back in its home. And that type of mentality worked perfectly for a budget. So that's one, I tell people, listen, you want budgeting, you want help with budgeting, that's absolutely fine. I will put Corinne on with you and she will help you with a budget, tell you everything that you got to think of, write it down and assign money to it. That is what she did. She does that tremendous job on that.
Well, where can people find you if they want to start improving their finances today?
I'll give you the website. We have a website, divinestewardship.com. You can go there, take a look at the links. There's a sign up or schedule a call link, clarity call. You can just go right there. We have a Instagram, the Divine Stewardship at Divine Stewardship on Instagram. We have Facebook page, Divine Stewardship. We just started a TikTok. It's very, very, very new. I think we just started it this week. So I think we have a couple of posts on there. But yeah, any one of those, if you have any questions, just hit up those. I think on the website, there's a little mail thing, so you can send us an email. There's also a form to send us any questions. Yeah, I love talking about personal finance. I love helping people get ahead. I love helping people see alternatives. Corinne's the same way. My wife, she loves getting people on the right path or on a path that is straighter than what they're used to. And, that we think people deserve better. Okay. That's just what we think. So, people who are tired or sick or tired of the rat race, so to speak, just spinning in the wheel, definitely give us a call or reach out, get something on the books, schedule a call with those links. We'll get you on a clarity call, get you in aligned. And, we're helping people steward their money with clarity, confidence, and purpose.
Love it, man. Time for another
Oh
would
man,
you
I
rather
get two.
question.
Here we go.
All right. So once again, I'm going to go back to the well of Star Wars and Dragon Ball Z. Would you rather train with Master Yoda for 10 years, but you never leave Dagobah, or you train with Goku for 1 year, but once a week you have to spar him at full power? He's at full power and spars with you once a
Goku,
week.
hands down. I'm sorry, I can't do Dagobah. And Yoda, that's he's cool and everything.
You're-
No. I would much rather get my ass pounded by Goku anytime because I'm gonna probably get stronger and better each time. Even though I'm gonna get my handed to me 9 times. Hopefully there's that 0.1% where I may just get a punch or two in. Fine. At full capacity, great. I'm taking Goku every time. I'm sorry. Yoda, love you, but I'm going Goku.
I'm going Goku as well, only because I can only put up with so much Yoda talk that 10 years of it, I'm gonna try to force apparition myself. I'm good. I'm out. I can't leave Dagobah.
Tired of
I'm
me,
good.
you will be.
I'm done. I can't do this, man. Yes, annoyed.
I'm sorry. That was a much easier one than the last one for sure. Yeah, that was a much easier one.
I wanted to ease up just a little bit, but I thought that'd
Oh
still
yeah.
be a good one. But anyways, thank you all for listening today. Chris, once again, thank you for coming on today. If you're listening to this, if you haven't already, please like, share, subscribe, leave a review. It really helps out growing podcasts and growing channels like mine, like Chris's. Whenever you actually interact, it really helps out with the algorithm more than you know. And it takes you 5 seconds to really, really make a tremendous impact for us. So thank you as always for listening, and we will catch you on the next one.